Thank you, Mr. Allen, place 4 candidate.
I truly believe that tourism is a extensive, vital part of survivability. There's a great amount of people that come to Kerrville at different times of the year, and if any of you have ever experienced trying to find hotel rooms for people during the summer, when parents are bringing their kids to camp and picking them back up from camp, there's not a hotel room to be had. As a business owner, and you all know that business, a funeral home, we frequently try to accommodate families in booking hotel rooms, and there's times of the year that it's impossible. It's flat impossible. I had one family last summer that literally had to stay in Atlanta, and that's a long drive, and it's also a bit on the embarrassing side when you have to tell someone that, I'm sorry, there's not a hotel room within 50 miles. So we've got to do a good job in securing the future for tourism, and make the best of what's available to us, and create a better environment.
Paul Stafford, place 4, please.
The convention center will not work without an additional hotel. I had the good pleasure of visiting with Ms. Burdette. She gave me a plan that she meticulously studied the possibilities of what could happen here. She has pointed out over 281 organizations in the state of Texas alone that could, and some have said they would, use the facility if it was available. In the first year, the projected income from using such a facility would be over $13 million, and it goes up from there. If these figures are correct, I don't know, but I understand that the city had a like survey, and we haven't been told the results of that yet. Why we have to do everything twice here is a little confusing to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And David Wonka, running for mayor.
Kyle, yeah, tourism is part of our economy now. One thing I'd point out or bring up is that I don't think the tourism that we have or probably likely to have in the future is really homogeneous in nature. We've got people that are coming on the weekends on motorcycles. We have camp parents who are coming. We have their kids really that are spending time, at least in the county, and I view them as tourists. They come and stay for a couple of weeks and go home. There are probably some other people that come to play golf. People who just want to go drive through the hill country, maybe spend a night out away from town. So there's lots of different categories of tourists. If you're setting us up for a convention center question, I'm not saying you are, but if you are, I'm not sure that, there's lots of different categories, and conventioneers, people that come here for a business meeting, currently have their own category, and they are doing that. And could we grow that business? Certainly we probably could. But to say, do you like tourism, therefore should we have a convention center, I think it's a little more complicated.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, you had another question?
Well, you guys read my mind in that. Obviously, we had a couple of different groups that were tasked with that job this last year to find out if truly we do want a convention center in Kerrville. The Citizens Committee came back with an affirmative answer, yes we do. We actually paid for a study, a professional study from a consulting group out of Austin. They did reconfirm that the business case is sound for a convention center in Kerrville. We all asked the question, how do we alleviate our home property taxes? I think we can turn that around, and the logical thing to do is how do we redistribute that load and become a pro-business city where there's lots of money in the economy that we can use to help cover the tax burden as opposed to just the homeowners paying the bulk of that taxes. So the question goes back to the council. And I don't think there's a politician out there that wouldn't say they were pro-business. But what can you do that's proactive? How can we be in a position where a proactive council that does encourage business growth and promote small business, not only small business, but bring in new dollars into the economy, which I believe, and the committee believed, and the professional study believed that the convention center would do. So the question, I guess, is back to you. If it's not a convention center, what is the answer to the question? How do we alleviate our tax burden without re-energizing our economy in some way?
David Wonka, I'm going to start with you.
First, I'm not a politician. Kyle, look, I do believe that government has a role in trying to foster debate, to lead in some cases, to set the agenda, to gather input from people that have opinions about where we're headed as a community, try to put all that thing, all that into the masher and come out with good policy and good planning for the future. Does a convention center fit into that? Is that a panacea? Is that a thing that's going to create tax relief for property owners here? Maybe. I'm not saying that it won't. I'm not convinced yet, and I'm not convinced because I don't have all the facts. I'm not on council. I'm not privy to all the facts. I've not looked at the proposals that are on the table right now. I have no idea how this particular issue is going to be resolved or come to a conclusion. Yeah, a consultant said that we need, we can support a convention center, and I'm sure Sudi looked at her numbers, and I know that Sudi says that we can support one, and I have a lot of respect for Sudi. She's been here a long time, has been very successful in bringing visitors to Kerrville. What are the alternatives? I don't know. Whether it's retail, which I think is probably inevitable at some point. We've, the last 15 or 20 years have seen an expansion in our retail base. Hell, we had a Lowe's and a Home Depot open within a couple of months of each other. So I think those sorts of things are going to continue organically here, whether we want them or not. I think the private sector is going to come and find a way to make that happen if they think they can make a return on the dollar. I am open, and I will do everything I can to look at this convention center issue, but I also want to remind people or keep in mind that this convention center idea is not something that's been in the works for the last 20 years, that we've, as a community, that's striving for this idea to have it and make ourselves the convention center capital of Texas. It's really a debate that's come up over the last 6 or 8 months because the hospital's coming down. So it's situational, and I know from my past experience, being very careful of situational debates and being very prudent in how you approach them. This is not part of the long-term plan that I don't think anybody looked at even 10 years ago. So we need to be very careful about how we approach it.
Thank you very much. Paul Stafford, place 4 candidate.
How do you bring in new business? Well, you have to give them some incentives. Startup business is very difficult, especially things that we have recognized here, restaurants. You have to have enough working capital to operate sometimes 2 to 3 years before you can become successful in a restaurant. I know that for a fact because my wife was very successful in the restaurant business back in New Orleans. But you have to give people incentives. You've got to entice them to come. You've got to help them. Now, what those incentives are, tax breaks, help with the infrastructure, whatever. I really have to get more deeply involved with this to give you more definitive answers.
Mr. Gene Allen, place 4 candidate.